Grand Ascension, my beautiful sentient beings, how are you all this evening? It is me, Carolyn Denise, also known as Nisi, wanted to come to you to bring another reading. I was over on Facebook earlier this evening and I did a live stream, so if you do have a Facebook, please go check out the video. I was reading over Terra Infinita, the map of the Dome Worlds, planets or domes 67 through 75. Okay. I owe you guys a lot of videos on why I am transitioning to a new role. You might be seeing a little bit more of me here lately in the next few coming days and weeks. So I want to get caught up on bringing some information and sharing information as I transition into a new role at work. I'm going to get ready to get started here, and I want to bring this up so you guys can see me on camera. I am going to be reading from about 4 or 5 different texts. I'm going to lay these out, just going to share some information as we're all great students in this ethos of life, all right, in these temporal frames or avatars. And I just want to bring some information to you, and we're just going to analyze and build a foundation and learn and grow together, right? So today is Tuesday, November, I think it is the 27th or the 28th, I think. Not keeping up with the days or the month. I know the month, not really keeping up with the days right now. So I'm really just trying to get back to that place of nothingness and oneness. Let me read this to you and we're going to get started, all right? Enough of me chit-chatting. I hope everyone's doing great, and I appreciate you taking the time out to join me tonight to go over a couple of things. I'm going to be reading from a text that I refer to quite often, one of my favorite passages, okay? It's Psalms 121, and it says, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. Beautiful passages, especially when you understand who and what they are talking about or referring to, right? Let's do a quick review. I'm going to be coming from the Book of Wisdom. And the first thing I want to call out, or just to recap, is when we've read several months back, we talked about the inner workings of man or sentient beings. We are, for lack of a better word, a soul system. We live within a soul system, within the matrix, right? In this dome world, multiple dome worlds. And we have a world deep inside of us, which we rarely talk about and we rarely explore, okay? The soul system is within you. You have a pituitary and a pineal gland, and you have these energy points or chakras within you. There are multiple planes of existence, okay? You have the mental, the high astral, the middle astral, the lower astral, the etheric, and the physical, okay? If that's what you want to call it. But those are the 6 planes of existence, okay? Let's talk about what we are, okay, for a second. We are, as you would call it, Merkaba, body of light. Mer, okay, means light. Ka means spirit, and Ba means body. We possess all 3 of these in one, okay? What we are doing now is we're going to be covering some information to help us to understand these principles and these truths, and also help us to come back to center and focus on the nothingness and to go within and to activate these energy centers so that we can achieve higher states of consciousness. Okay. So let's talk about consciousness for a second. I've covered this before, but I'm going to do this quick. Humans possess a more advanced consciousness that markedly differs from that of animals. Animals operate with a one-way consciousness driven by instinct and lacking self-awareness. Unlike animals, humans exhibit a two-way consciousness, allowing us to be self-aware and engaged in interperspective analysis of our physical, spiritual, and mental aspects. Okay? Energy centers in our bodies. We know that this is the wisdom. We know this is the intuition. We know this is the expression. Okay. We know this is the love. We know this is the power. We know this is the food. And we know the lower part is the sex. Okay. That is the lower aspects. So when you talk about sin, mankind and sin, you are talking about the lower aspects of our nature. Okay. Which would be the power, the food, and the sex. Those are the lower aspects, or the sin, okay? Gonna cover these pretty quick. The chakras also within our energy centers within our bodies represent different frequencies, okay? Gonna run through this pretty quick. In order to achieve a higher state of consciousness or awareness, or to go to heaven, you must be at 144,000. Okay, that's what the scripture says in text, and I'm gonna break it down to you really quickly. All right, 144,000. The first petals or the root is the number 4. The sacral is number 6. The solar is 10. The heart is 12, and the throat is 16. The third eye petals is 2, and then you do 48 times 2 is 96. 96 plus 48 is 144. The crown petals are 1,000. 1,000 times 144 is 144,000 hertz. Each particular energy center throws off a hertz or a frequency. The goal is to align all of the energy centers within your human avatar at a frequency of 144,000. This, it represents 963, 852, 741, 639, 528, 417, and the lower aspect is 396 hertz. They resonate at that frequency. Then you will become what you would state enlightened or access to the higher states of consciousness. All right. So the crown chakra, the third eye chakra, the throat chakra, the heart chakra, the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, and the root chakra. All of these are very important. We are God's incarnate, okay? We are God in the flesh. You do your research, you will find that out. I'm going to read this part from the Neville Goddard. It is called You Shall Decree. And I know I've covered this before, but I think this is befitting for us to get into this reading tonight. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Job 22:28. So shall my word be that go forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent. Isaiah 55:11. And it reads, man can decree a thing and it will come to pass. Man has always decreed that which has appeared in his world. He is today decreeing that which is appearing in his world, and he shall continue to do so as long as man is consciousness of being man. Nothing has ever appeared in the man's world but what man decreed that it should. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Nothing has ever appeared in man's world but what man has decreed that it should. This you may deny, but try as you will, you cannot disprove it, for this decreeing is based upon a changeless principle. Man does not command things to appear by his words, which are, more often than not, a confession of his doubts and fears. Decreeing is ever done in consciousness. Every man automatically expresses that which he is conscious of being without effort or the use of words. At every moment of time, man is commanding himself to be and to possess that which he is conscious of being and possessing. This changeless principle of expression is dramatized in all the Bibles of the world. The writers of our sacred books were illuminated mystics, but past masters in the art of psychology. In telling the story of the soul, they personified that impersonal principle in the form of historical document, both to preserve it and to hide it from the eyes of the uninitiated. We are talking about occult or hidden knowledge, hidden things, and we're going to break it down. Today, those to whom this great treasure has been entrusted, namely the priesthoods of the world, have forgotten that the Bibles are psychological dramas representing the consciousness of man. In their blind forgetfulness, they now teach their followers to worship its characters as men and women who actually lived in time and space. Okay? And I will simply say, and I apologize, I must have a hair in my contact. I will simply state that I'm not here to offend anyone, to ruffle anyone's feathers. I'm simply reading information, and it is up to you to do your own research and to you to come to a understanding, okay? And that's what I'm going to say about that. When man sees the Bible as a great psychological drama, with all of its characters and actors as the personified qualities and attributes of his own consciousness, then and then only will the Bible reveal to him the light of its symbology. This impersonal principle of life, which made of all things, is personified as God. This Lord God, creator of heaven and earth, is discovered to be man's awareness of being. If man were less bound by orthodoxy and more intuitively observant, he could not fail to notice in the reading of the Bibles across the world that the awareness of being is revealed hundreds of times throughout this literature. To name a few, I am have sent me unto you, Exodus 3:14. Be still and know that I am God, Psalms 46:10. I am the Lord, and there is no other God. Isaiah 45:5, Joel 2:27. I am the shepherd. John 10:11. I am the door. John 10:9. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11:25. I am the way. John 14:6. I am the beginning and the end. Revelation 1:8. I am. Man's unconditional awareness of being is revealed as Lord and creator of every conditioned state of being. If man would give up his belief in God apart from himself and recognize his awareness of being to be God, thus awareness fashions itself in the likeness and image of its conception of itself, he would transform his world from a barren waste to a fertile field of his own liking. The day man does this, he will know that he and his Father are one. The day that man does this, he will know that he and his Father are one, but his Father is greater than he. He will know that his consciousness of being is one with that which he is conscious of being, but that his unconditioned consciousness of being is greater than his conditioned state or his conception of self, of himself. When man discovers his consciousness to be the impersonal power of expression, which power eternally personifies itself in his conceptions of himself, he will assume and appropriate the state of consciousness which he desires to express. In so doing, he will become that state in expression. Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Can now be told in this manner. It can now be told in this manner. Ye shall become conscious of being or possessing a thing, and you shall express or possess that which you are conscious of being. The law of consciousness is the only law of expression. The law of consciousness is the only law of expression. I am the way. I am the resurrection. Consciousness is the way as well as the power which resurrects and expresses all that man will ever be conscious of being. Turn from the blindness of the uninitiated man who attempts to express and possess those qualities and things which he is not conscious of being and possessing, and be as an illuminated mystic. Be as an illuminated mystic who decrees on the basis of the changeless law. Consciously claim yourself to be that which you seek. Consciously claim to yourself to be that which you seek. Appropriate the consciousness of that which you are. Appropriate the consciousness of that which you are. Consciously claim yourself to be that which you seek. Appropriate the consciousness of that which you see, and you too will know the status of the true mystic as follows. I became conscious of being it. I am still conscious of being it, and I shall continue to be the conscious of being it until which I am conscious of being is perfected, expressed. Yet I shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. Neville Goddard. Now, we're going to get into science of sacred secretion. And I'm going to read to you a couple of things. One, let's talk about this. And I should have had my notes out here. I'm going to try to go through memory. Try to do the recall, the Rolodex, Chief. All right, sacred secretion. What is it? You all should know that if you've been following the videos, and the people that watch my stuff pretty much know it. But for those who are the first time seeing me on camera, and for those of you who half listen, the sacred secretion is our CFF fluid, cerebral spinal fluid. Runs up and down our spine. It also goes through the lymphatic system. It goes through our spine and then through our cerebral cortex. All right, that's what it is. It's that clear liquid, you know, if you've ever done a spinal tap, or for women like me who've had children and have had them to issue a, I can't think of it, but you know what I'm saying, the pain to numb you, they tap into your spinal fluid, okay? And that's what that is, all right? So that's what the sacred secretion is. The sacred secretion is a spiritual title given to the body's biorhythm and producing a cosmically influenced androgynous DMT brew. Okay. Every month when the moon enters the energetic alignment of the star sign that engulfed you at birth, the human body vibrates stronger energy, which empowers the production of the sacred secretion and its preservation. The secretion leaves the brain, travels down the spinal cord to the sacrum, constantly increasing the levels of intensity of the fluid. The secretion rises again back to the center of the brain, which is the ventricles, where it rests for 2.5 days. Once released into the bloodstream, the increased DMT levels allow a person to reach higher planes of awareness. The 12 inorganic mineral cell salts include calcium fluoride, very different from the toxic hydrogen fluoride found in tap water and in toothpaste, okay? Calcium fluoride, calcium phosphate, calcium sulfate, phosphate of iron, potassium chloride, potassium phosphate, potassium sulfate, magnesium phosphate, sodium chloride, sodium phosphate, sodium sulfate, and silica. If this is an area of interest to you, I would suggest you study Dr. Schussler. Interesting fact, when a human body is reduced to ashes, there are only these 12 mineral salts left behind, okay? The 12 cell salts also tie into the 12 zodiac signs, okay? And it is Aries, the ram, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Although there are some discrepancies about the modern accuracy of these due to natural planetary shifts, which there really are 13 houses, 13 zodiacal signs, but there are 12 cranial nerves, right? So you have to really study these things to know that. But like I was saying, You calculate the number of lunar cycles from your date of birth and recent sacred secretions, and they correspond exactly. So I do not perceive that this is an issue due to the fact that the lunar energy will still be aligned with the star power present during your virgin birth on these preservation days each month. You're carried in the womb for 9 months. There are 12 salts. When you're born at month 9, there are 3 salts that you are deficient in. Those are the 3 salts that you should know based on your birth date into the avatar body that you see me on camera with, because everybody has this, right? Because we are organic beings, carbon-based life forms, right? So you need to know the 3 cell salts that you're deficient in and maintain that with a balanced diet, sleep, exercise, meditation, and grounding, right? Those are the key things. Okay. Next up, I'm going to read to you. It's been a minute since I've read to you, so I'm going to jump right into the life of Jesus, which is chapter 6. And I want you just to listen. Some of you may find this very, you may get taken back by it, and it may turn you off, but I just want to share the information with you. And I want you to analyze what I'm saying and then go look up the information and do your own research. All right. And again, I'm reading from this book, The Science of Sacred Secretion, and this is by Victoria Laulu. Chapter 6, The Life of Jesus, an Ancient Fairy Tale. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. Nikola Tesla. Humans use symbols in the form of images and text to store. Let me make sure I'm on the right page here. Bear with me. Yes. Humans use symbols in the forms of images and text to store information and preserve knowledge. It is in this way that humans in the past have recorded the knowledge of the world. Often these are presented as stories for the younger members of communities to build a foundation of understanding upon, thus altering behaviors based on analysis of symbolic representation of past events. Stories are also a more effective means of remembering things. As a learning tool, Levi, in 2019, has found that creating images and stories that elicit strong visuals are among the best ways of enhancing memories. By remembering that the DNA is a library of genetic information and each individual human, for what I'm going to call in this video as humans, we have the ability to store at least 15 generations of DNA within our bodies. So we have 15 generations of epigenetic memories, okay? And it says, by remembering that the DNA is a library of genetic information, reading stories that have secret information encoded within their imagery could be seen as triggers for dormant genes to awaken. I believe that the life of Jesus is among such stories. The Bible has been interpreted in a vast number of ways due to the fact that it is layered with pictorials. It was written, read, rewritten, an array of times by people from various professions and expertise. St. Luke, for example, was a physician, a medical doctor. Historian and theologian Barbara Thiering claims that biblical texts were written for 2 audiences: common people who would read it as a story, and the inner circles who could read between the lines. Written for 2 different peoples. She believes that the texts were written as a way of holding secrets from the outer circle, such as the Romans. These texts, retold over generations in evolving tongue, are often a translation of a translation of a translation. This makes it obvious that some misinterpretation would occur, and there are errors within the biblical text. We know this. In addition, biblical researcher Ralph Ellis claims that Paul, or St. Paul, exaggerated the gospel stories for profit and to increase governmental control of citizens. Nowadays, this exaggerated text has no place in the modern world. Hence, it appears to have no relevance and cannot be resonated with. As history is constantly repeating, it is now time for the world's original science-based religion to be restored. So the story of Christ Yeshua's life is actually just that, a story. A myth created by ancient cultures to describe a phenomena. Just like Cinderella tells the story of kindness conquering cruelty, the Lion King tells us to see the Father inside ourselves, and how Snow White's seven dwarfs represent the main chakra system. Christ Yeshua's life tells the story of the zodiacal house in the sky. It is a fairy tale full of metaphors that attempt to guide the reader towards a deeper understanding of themselves and their purpose, to reconnect with the spirit and become enlightened. Yet I do believe that the historical Jesus was really based on a real person. His name was Yeshua or Joshua, or even a few people at various times, who taught the way of preservation, whose life was likely intertwined with that of the sacred seed in order to create one great enlightening tale. From knowing when to sow their seeds to foretelling a flood before we had clocks and computational technology, the ancients used the stars to tell the time and to predict the future. The first page of the Bible even says, "Let the stars be for signs for sacred times." Therefore, this chapter is dedicated to showing the direct links between the life of Jesus and the zodiac signs, or the zodiac period. Adoration for the sun and the stars has been evidenced on the cave walls since as far back as 14,000 BC. The sun has long been worshipped as the father of all life on earth, powering consciousness and expressing itself in living form. It even allows us to exchange information using photons or light energy. The ancients knew of this connection between the earth and the sun and other celestial bodies. Hence, constructed monuments to enhance this, such as pyramids and stone circles. Jesus then was the Sun, S-U-N, not the Son, S-O-N. Like the sun, Yeshua was referred to as the light of the world. He is also regularly drawn with a halo, which appears suspiciously similar to the sun, too. Arguably, the story of Christ Yeshua, as told in the Bible, is actually a tale of the sun moving through the star constellations and how the energies of these affect us on earth. It is a story of the stars and the connection between us and the heavens, as above, so below. Again, this chapter seeks to explain some of the astronomical links within the Bible. In the next chapter, loose ends will also be tied by describing the entanglement between the astronomical, biblical, and chemical story of the sacred secretion. For now, let's start with the birth. The mother of Yeshua, Mary, note the letter M derives from the sound mem, which means water. Conceived as a virgin of Virgo, the child is the son of God, a balance between the spirit and the physical Libra. The first to hear about the birth of Yeshua were the shepherds, or Aries. Jesus is born in a manger between the horse and the goat, Sagittarius and Capricorn. But when the evil King Herod heard about the boy, he ordered a massacre to ensure that the boy was slaughtered, Scorpio. Turning water to wine is the first miracle performed by Yeshua in Aquarius. He was also baptized at 30 years of age. The sun enters Aquarius 30 days after December the 25th, and the significance of the date will fall shortly. When spreading his teachings, Yeshua first approaches two men, fishermen, and exclaims, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." He feeds 5,000 people with only 2 fish before walking on water, which is Pisces. I would like to take a pause here for the sun, S-U-N, and the sun story to explain the significance of the sign of Pisces. During the era that the biblical Yeshua texts were set, the earth was at the age of Pisces, hence the many links between Yeshua and the zodiac symbol. Similarly, when asked for a sign from heaven, Jesus explained, "You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the sign of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a miracle sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah." This quote shows how all too often humans focus only on what they can physically see. The sign of Jonah is a fish, and as mentioned previously, the words of the Bible and the metaphors within it were written during the age of Pisces, the sign of the fish. Every 2,000 years or so, the sun's position moves in front of a new zodiac sign. Yeshua was born over 2,000 years ago during the age of Pisces, which is followed by the age of Aquarius, where we are heading now. And we're just about there if we're not there. Within the Bible, Yeshua tells his disciples, "Behold, when you entered into the city, there shall be a man to meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house he enters." From this quote, the house is a reference to the mind. It means we meet Jesus during meditation. We meet Christ in the air, left brain, right brain. The creator, center, Christ sits on the right hand of God, the right throne, the right side of the brain. For those of you who know, you know, right? And it says, the man with the pitcher, the water pitcher is Aquarius, a metaphor for the modern day consciousness and the cycle of spirituality. Again, the whole universe follows continuous cycles. It's all about a divine cycle. We are currently in a cycle that is returning to the ways of the ancients, hence the age of knowledge and knowing, coming into the awareness, the age of revealing information. The ways of spirituality, enlightenment, and consciousness. Throughout the rest of the biblical story, Yeshua tells many parables, including that of the two sons, Gemini and the lost sheep, Aries. He is also described as the good shepherd, leading the way for his sheep. The son had 12 disciples, or 12 cranial nerves in the brain, or 12 zodiac signs, as well as the King of Kings, Leo. Jesus was taken to a place called Golgotha, place of the skull, which means that place of the skull, to be crucified on the cross as Libra. His crucifixion took place between two thieves, Scorpio and Sagittarius. The months of which are robbed of harvest could only represent the third eye between the two physical eyes that rob us of our non-physical awareness. I'm going to repeat that one more time for the people in the back row. I'm going to say it slowly. Very important. His crucifixion took place between two thieves, Scorpio and Sagittarius, the months of which we are robbed of harvest, could also represent the third eye, which sits between the two physical eyes that rob us of our non-physical awareness. At the time of Yeshua's death, Capricorn, the earth was engulfed in darkness, like the sun during a winter solstice leaves the earth in darkness. During the time of darkness, the sun rests on the southern cross or constellation, the crux or the crucifixion of the sun. After his death, Yeshua was left in a tomb for 2.5 days, the same length of time the sun is entombed during the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. This happens between the 22nd and the 24th of December. On the 25th of December, the sun, S-U-N, or the Son is reborn. The Son, S-O-N. The Son, Christ, is reborn. Likewise, Christian countries around the world celebrate Jesus' birthday on December 25th. It is a national holiday and a time to celebrate Christmas. The Christmas holiday is celebrated as the birth of Yeshua, when in actual fact, it is well known that the holiday is instead celebrating a longer daytime hours after a dark winter, the rebirth of the S-U-N. I'm going to say it one more time. Christian countries around the world celebrate Yeshua's birthday on December the 25th. It is a national holiday and a time to celebrate Christmas. The Christmas holiday is celebrated as the birth of Yeshua, when in actual fact, it is well known that the holiday is instead celebrating the longer daytime hours after a dark winter, the rebirth of our sun in the sky. Following the 2.5 days of being preserved within the tomb, Yeshua rises again, showing the balance being restored between the physical and the spirit. And the story doesn't stop there. Once in heaven, as recorded in the book of Revelations, the zodiac constellations are repeatedly referenced again, including the lamb, Aries, the lion, Leo, the ox, Taurus, a creature with a face like a man, and a rider with a bow, Sagittarius, scales, Libra, a sackcloth made of goat hair, Capricorn, locust-like scorpion, Scorpio, human faces with women's hair, Virgo, breastplates of iron, Gemini, and so on. With regards to the sacred secretions, some other interesting links include: in the Old Testament, Jacob wrestled with God, overcame God's challenges and tests of will at a place called Peniel or Pineal, the place of the creator of all, God, the consciousness, supreme. Jacob had 12 sons who went on to become the tribes of Israel, the Holy Land. These 12 sons correspond with the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 cranial nerves and the 12 astronomical, the 12 zodiacal signs. David defeated Goliath, the beast, by throwing 5 smooth stones at the creature's forehead. The stones represent the release of the 5 physical senses in order to conquer the ego. The stones represent the 5 physical senses in order to conquer the ego. Death to the ego. Before their escape, God covered Egypt in complete darkness for 3 days. Only the Israelites had light. Moses describes the Holy Land as flowing with milk and honey. The sacred secretion is a mixture of white fluid, which is milk, and nutrient-rich chemicals, honey. And that is what we all possess within us. Or most of us, anyway. Human. Let me put it that way. After Elijah was ascended to heaven, Elisha looked for him for 3 days before throwing salt into the Jordan River to clean it and heal it. The 3 wise men saw the star signaling the birth of Yeshua in the east and where the sun rises. Jesus quoted, "The kingdom of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, 'See here,' or 'See there,' for indeed the kingdom of God is within you." Thus, awakening cannot be seen. It is felt inside. And your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, the place of the skulls. Golgotha, the right hand of what? God, the pineal gland. Christ. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because all living matter is made of the same building blocks from within the cosmos. By following the way of the heavens, we are given in eternal peace. Mark of the beast is 666, which is man. And let me get this right. I'm calling up my Rolodex here. 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6, is it neutrons? Am I thinking correctly? 666 is man, which is a carbon-based life form. The mark of the beast is the calcified pineal gland. Calcification is done because of us living in this dome, in this toxic environment, from those who run the toxic environment, the custodians and the Anunnaki. Okay? They know what we possess. We have forgotten who we are and what we possess. Being constantly bombarded by EMF, indoctrination, and poisoning. This is why we are reading this text, so that we can get to the bottom and discover or rediscover the occult knowledge. Jesus also said, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, it is no longer good for anything." Just as each zodiac sign affects corresponding inorganic mineral salts within the body, the preservation of the sacred secretion is a physical way that we can control these vibrations in response to the astronomical influences. Corinthian explains that those who preserve and become baptized by the sacred oil will receive spiritual gifts from the Lord, whom saved us through the washing of rebirth and renewal by the Holy Spirit, whom he poured out on us generously through Christ Yeshua. Christ is a title. Christed, to become enlightened, to become one with the creator of all. Going back into the great void, into the consciousness, and reconnecting to the All-Father, Source, Spirit, what you would call God. That is our true birthright, and that is our true essence of who we are and what we are. We are God's incarnate in the flesh, and we have fallen and forgotten who we are. Within the book of Revelations, God was surrounded by 7 stars, 7 churches, 7 lamps, representing the balancing and purity of the main energy centers that we talked about for the first part of the video. along with the spine and the chakra system. Okay, those are the 7 stars, 7 churches, 7 candlesticks, 7 lamps represents the balancing and the purity of the main energy centers. If you have a blockage, it will be hard for that energy to flow up correctly and for you to become enlightened. You have to balance the energy centers. You have to learn how to manipulate the energy in your body. And you also have to understand that your environment plays a factor, as well as your diet and what you put in your body and what you take in physically, and what you see around you and what you deal with on a day-to-day basis will affect that. By God's throne were 4 creatures, each with 6 wings. 4 times 6 is 24, who constantly praise the Lord day and night, 24 hours. Hence, to the fully return to the source, energy, God, righteousness, living must become a lifestyle choice. I'm going to say that one more time. Hence, to fully return to the source, energy, God, righteous living must become a lifestyle choice rather than something practiced for a few days a month or once a week, going into these synagogues or houses of worship. It must be a lifestyle change. There are endless philosophers who have dedicated their life's work to decoding these metaphors and biblical symbolism. This chapter is only a short overview of some of the well-known links between the Bible and the sacred secretion. For more information on biblical story metaphors, I suggest you studying the work of Bill Donahue. I know him personally, and he is a great gentleman. Okay, I have reached out to him multiple times, and he has helped me in my walk and my course over the last, 14 years? At least. Clearly then, God refers to the universe, to the heavens above, and us as human beings who are evolved in connection and correlation with the cosmos, that are the cosmic energies, are created in the image of God, or the image of the Elohim. Understanding these connections is essential for the next part of the book, where we will all look specifically at the signs of the sacred secretion. You will notice throughout that there are clear links between the rise of the Christ oil and the story of Christ. Following that is an explanation of how to preserve the sacred secretion to reach higher planes of consciousness. This is supported by the astronomical, biological, and biblical references. Let's summarize what I just read. The story of Christ, Yeshua, is a metaphorical one with many layers of interpretation due to the different scholars contributing to its editing. Jesus was the Son, S-U-N, and not the Son, S-O-N. Here his life is, in fact, a story of the sun's annual cycle through Earth's zodiacal houses. By following the teachings of Christ Yeshua, we can learn how the ancients preserved the sacred secretion, how they were able to reach levels of consciousness higher than that of most modern people. The earlier biblical text describes our evolution and struggle with achieving enlightenment. The later stories of Yeshua are explaining how to overcome these internal challenges and finding happiness within ourselves, okay? And that is the story of Christ. Now, I know I said this is going to be a little lengthy tonight. We're going to get into it. Okay. Now, I want to get into this next part. And let me see if I have it, where I'm going to pick up at. We're going to get into process 7, the vagus crossing and the cerebrum. And this is the science of sacred secretion, your complete guide to Kundalini energy, Christ oil, alchemy, and the monthly seed. This is by Carrie Marie Kerr. Okay. And what I was reading to you was from Victoria Lalu. Okay. And prior to that, I read the Book of Wisdom, the Neville Goddard Collection, and also Psalms 121. Just for a reference. All right, let's get into process 7. The vagus crossing and the cerebellum. 3 years of vertebra after his or his seed's baptism at C4, Yeshua is crucified at the age 33. 33 vertebra. Christ was crucified 33. Jacob's ladder, which talks about your spine. Okay. The 33 vertebra is at the mandala, near the entrance of the cerebellum, where the double cross of crucifixion which is a transmutation, is situated. The double cross is formed by the Ida and the Pingali left and right atomic nervous system, and the left and right vagus nerves, or the C and X, the breath channels. The crucifixion can actually be likened to an invigoration of power and or potential. To crucify means to add or to increase 1,000-fold. When electric wires are crossed, they set on fire oil and flammable substances near them. When the Christ seed crossed the nerves at the Golgotha, place of the skull, the veil of the temple fell, and the generative cells of the body were quickened or regenerated. But what does the mystical description really mean? Let's take a look. At the double cross in the mandala, the seed is infused with an air, nitrogen and oxygen from the vagus, which brightens and charges its light in the same way that wind rouses fire, and the minerals or the cell salts that protect the seed on its ascension are removed at the double cross. The oil in the seed, when born, is covered by a crust of mineral salts, which are baptized in Jordan by John, is loosened in order that the shell may fall apart when the seed goes over the cross, in order that the precious material may ascend into the pineal gland. So, after its crucifixion, the seeds constitutes enter the cerebellum, which symbolizes by Jesus' tomb. And this is what it looks like on camera. It's a picture of our brain. It talks about the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the pons. The cerebellum is the intuitive brain, which controls the involuntary functions of the body, such as breathing, circulation, sleeping, digestion, and swallowing. The autonomic functions are basically all the functions that we don't really have to think about performing. The cerebellum deals with synergistic activity and makes everything work in harmony with everything else. It is the coordinating activity of the cerebellum that allows us to perform whatever function we choose. All the activity of the body, muscle tension, joint relaxation, hearing, vision, the relationship of every part of the body in time and space sends impulses to the cerebellum. The cerebellum is like an electrical loom. Electrical impulses give the cerebellum a perfect representation of the body's position in time and space. We are electrical appliances, people. That's why I've always said in videos in the past that if you were to stop breathing and drop right there, drop dead, first thing a person's going to do is they're going to check your pulse. They're going to clear your airway, and they're going to start chest compressions to kickstart the heart, and they're going to breathe into your mouth. They're going to do so many beats per minute. And to do chest compressions correctly or CPR, you damn near have to crack a rib. I mean, seriously. They say that now you really don't have to breathe into a person's mouth because their lungs are still full of air. So you're just restarting the heart. You will then have someone to go grab an AED if you're at work. They will pull open your chest or pull open your clothes, rip your clothes off your chest, apply the paddles, set it to charge, clear, and shock you. And they will do that repeatedly until they get a pulse. Then, of course, they will call 911 and they will have them to come out at some point. Hopefully, you will be revived. That has happened to me, and I can tell you, I felt the chest compress. I didn't feel the chest compressions. I felt the paddles. I felt the shock, and that shit hurt. I'm just going to tell you. I was hovering above my body, but I felt the sensation. And next thing I knew, I was hovering up above and looking down. So it is a real thing, people. It is a real thing. We are electrical appliances. That's my point. We're energy beings. And it says, the cerebellum is like an electrical loom. The electrical pulses give the cerebellum a perfect representation of the body's position in time and space. This powerful excerpt will tell us everything we need to know about the cerebellum. The cerebellum clearly demonstrates the proper functioning of the intellect as it begins to move into Christ consciousness. As we become aware of the underlying activity that coordinates, balances, and harmonizes every action in creation, the cerebellum begins to receive the picture. Then we have available to us the information that represents the total body of creation, and we can become co-creators with the primary creator. The cerebellum is the part of the brain that receives messages from the nervous system. It tells us what we think or feel about a certain thing. Eckhart Tolle explains that in the absence of awareness, virtually all of your thoughts appear to you instead of for you, meaning that the autonomous system is running riot and keeping you imprisoned to discordant thought patterns. Thus, you are not considered a master of yourself. And I have The Power of Now right here. Compliments of Chief Red Wolf. Another great read. All right. And it says, when we give more power to the forebrain, or the rational part of our consciousness, we contribute to the atrophy and the redundancy of all of our powerful cerebellum. Consequences of the degenerative cerebellum is unconsciousness during the transition between sleep and wake. Okay. And this is to a degenerative cerebellum. All right. Unconsciousness during the transition between sleep and wake. No recollection of astral experiences and difficulty remembering dreams. That's me in some cases, in more cases than not. Loss of reception between the body's higher and lower centers, preventing the clarity of message received from the higher self. I recommend reading The Cell of Life and Awakening and Regenerating for more empowering information on the cerebellum. To recap, after the seed is crucified, it remains in the cerebellum, the tomb, until it is resurrected or diffused through the cerebellar lungula. Chapter summary. After its baptism by thyroxine, the seed arrives at the double cross, or the ida and the pingala and the vagus nerve, where it is crucified, increased in power 1,000 folds, and subsequently travels to the cerebellum, which is the tomb. The next up is the process, or the superconsciousness, or the awakening. Okay. Now, that is the part where we want to get to, where it breaks down the super consciousness, or the resurrection. It says, after approximately 3 days, the time the moon spends in your individual sun or zodiac sign, the resurrected seed is released from the cerebellum through the cerebellar lingua into the fourth CSF ventricle and the pituitary. The resurrected seed causes the pituitary to secrete floods of oxytocin and terspin, which consequently invigorates the pineal. The stimulated pineal then glows rich with the nitric oxide and upgrades melatonin into DMT and the other biochemicals of superconsciousness and awakening. DMT, melatonin, is a skin lightener. Okay. I know you guys know this stuff. Some of you do. It's great to recall this information, right? Let me just read this part to you. This is coming from Becoming Supernatural, Joe Dispenza. Just going to read one part, and we're going to get into it. Melatonin, okay? Melatonin and serotonin, it has an inverse relationship between the adrenal hormones. Is melatonin. Adrenal corticoid levels are up. That means your melatonin levels are down. Corticoid or cortisol levels are up. Your melatonin goes down. It's not good. You're staying in a fight or flight all the time. You got to learn how to relax. If your adrenal corticoid levels are down, your melatonin levels are up. As stress hormones go up, melatonin goes down. As stress hormones go down, melatonin levels go up. And that's what we all need to strive for, is those levels to go up. The most important thing you want to remember is the melatonin secretion happens between the hours of 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. So you want to be cognizant of the time that you try to get as much rest as possible. I'm struggling with that right now, but I am working towards that goal. It says, scientific facts about melatonin: stops the excess secretion of cortisol in response to stress, improves carbohydrate metabolism, lowers triglyceride levels, inhibits arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, heightens the immune response in cellular and metabolic, decreases development of certain tumors, increases lifespan in laboratory rats by 25%, activates a neuroproductive role in the brain, increases REM sleep or dream sleep, stimulates free radical scavenging or anti-agings or antioxidants, promotes DNA repair and replication. That is the importance of melatonin. That is the importance of us learning about our bodies and knowing what we encompass. Every single person has DMT in their body, and you got to wonder why we carry the spirit molecule, people. It's a purpose. It's a thing. It's a reason. It says the pituitary is the master gland of the endocrine system. The release of pituitary secretions corresponds with the electromagnetic radiation and the gravitational pull of the moon. Excuse me. This is possible due to the presence of magnetic crystals in the brain. We have millions of magnetite crystals in our brains. And I know you guys know this information, but it's always good to rehash it. Chief is reading this, Science of Sacred Secretion, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. He's reading so many different things. And Kimuro is excellent with his videos. Drop 432, Rondo, Millennials, Best, Navi Poet. Countless people are sharing great information I think you guys should lock into. I share them here on YouTube and I share them over on Facebook. All right. The pituitary gland is considered an important energetic organ in that it contains magnetite, a magnetically sensitive compound. Everyone has it in their brain. The two pituitary hormones that act as a major factor in the process and activation of the superconscious awakening or sacred secretion are the Vasprein or VP and the oxytocin, the OT. Vasopressin mediates stress and stabilizes circulation. Vasopressin has the monumental task of maintaining the appropriate volume of water in the space that surrounds cells of the body, the extracellular matrix. This allows proper cellular function. In other words, vasopressin is indispensable to the lymphatic system, nervous system, and all other vital fluids, a lunar aspect of the body. Oxytocin is all-powerful hormone level. The moment oxytocin levels go up, the brain survival centers cool off. The amygdala, an anagram for Mary Magdalene, slows the circuits of fear, sadness, pain, anxiety, aggression, and anger. Then the only thing we feel is a love for life. Fear, sadness, pain, anxiety, aggression, and anger are all emotions that counteract superconsciousness awakening. This is one of the reasons why I preface this book with some guidelines about thought and emotional control. Oxytocin has many important roles in the temple body, including the stimulation, production, and mitosis of stem cells. Lack of oxytocin brings on premature aging. But increasing oxytocin levels through meditation, compassion, and forgiveness actually slows down the aging process by improving the behavior of stem cells. The increased production and secretion of oxytocin causes a metabolic shift within the nervous system from sympathetic, which is stress mode, into parasympathetic, which is a restorative mode. And that's where we need to strive to be, in the parasympathetic or restorative mode, meaning a lowering of cortisol levels and faster healing of wounds. Oxytocin makes the heart swell, which helps to heal the body from past hurts and traumas. In turn, this provides a stronger capacity for forgiveness and unconditional love. Perhaps the most important thing to remember about oxytocin is that it acts as a catalyst for the pineal activity, thus producing the felt sensation of superconscious awakening. In the brain, it first activates the pituitary, the female negative pole, causing it to send a stream of bluish solar electricity through the infallible to the pineal, the male positive pole, thus circulating the circuit. And The pineal gland is just basically, it looks like a little pine cone. It closes and it opens, okay? The stream of the blue solar electricity traveling in the encephalobulum, I hope I said that right, between the pineal and the pituitary that Hemotet speaks of in nitric oxide, the sky is blue during the presence of nitrogen. The increased communication between the pituitary and the pineal by nitric oxide is parallel with the continuous fusing and refusing of the two sides of the optic thalamus, joined inwardly by the massa intermedia and outwardly by the fornix. This is the alchemical wedding, the lunar fluid and the solar mineral bodies uniting in a climax of power and healing. In scientific terms, the body's of electromagnetic circuit is balanced and it's thriving. All the energy centers are open and you're resonating and you're vibing. This is what is meant in the book of Thomas, where it says, Jesus said, if these two make peace with each other in this one house, they will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. As stated, the climax of enlightenment, which occurs in the pineal gland, has two major aspects. One, the stimulation of nitric oxide release, which is the Kundalini fire. Some say it feels like heat rising through your spine, okay? It's what it says. Some people feel like that. And then two, the upgrade of melatonin into the biochemicals of the superconsciousness awakening. These two operations are synchronous and will now be explained in clear detail. Nitric oxide. The pineal gland is bathed in highly charged cerebral final fluid, which is CSF. The pineal contains the following: calcite crystals that are piezoelectric. The endothelial cells that generate the nitric oxide are NO, and the pineal sites that mediate nitric oxide NO release. As described earlier, when we are in the state of harmony and the fluids of the body are purified and charged, the pituitary gland secretes more oxytocin and vasopressin, improving pineal metabolism. When this occurs, pineal citrate crystals vibrate more vigorously, causing the rapid release of nitrogen oxide, the Kundalini fire, and subsequently the pineal is stimulated to upgrade melatonin into DMT and the other biochemicals of superconsciousness awakening. We'll look at the role of DMT and the biochemicals of superconsciousness properly once we finish learning about the nitric oxide. The NO is basically nitrogen and oxygen. It is a colorless gas that is formed by the oxidation of nitrogen. Nitric oxide influences pineal metabolism, DMT synthesis, and nitric oxide is essential for the metabolism of all cellular regeneration. It is essential, you guys. We have to understand what our body does. See, the thing is, we need to understand that our body has an alchemical process, and that's why I'm reading this information to you and recalling it. Everyone has this information stored in their memory banks. We just have to have access to the Rolodex, right? And so I'm just reading these things as a recall to you and as well as myself, okay? And it says, nitric oxide is a molecule of health. The more, the better. The benefits of self-produced nitric oxide are prolific. For example, nitric oxide is involved with everything from the binding and release of oxygen and the hemoglobin to inhibiting inflammation. Nitric oxide is linked to the destruction of viruses, parasites, malignant cells in the airways and the lungs. Nitric oxide stimulates mRNA, the messenger of the DNA, and nitric oxide is a free radical. This explains why the awakening process is about dissolving old structures, physically, mentally, and emotionally. When pituitary hormones stimulate the pineal to upgrade melatonin into DMT, the DMT stimulates photon light emissions from the DNA, which starts to fire a synapses, right? Therefore, we actually shine brighter. Like I said, it's a skin lightener. In the biology of the Kundalini, page 43, Janet Dixon says, the tangles and the bubbles are always felt with the increased Kundalini fire. The tingles and associated with the increased nitric oxide. So that tingling, or that some people say burning sensation, that's what you're feeling, the nitric oxide within the human body. Air is mostly nitrogen, which is 777, and oxygen is 888. Electrons in the air are the life force in the breath of life. More than we breathe for air, we breathe to take in life force in the form of electrons as nitrogen and oxygen. Nostril breathing increases nitrous oxide in the body. Hence, all the prananas that involve nasal breathing. In Hinduism, a common mantra is Om, Om. Christianity altered Om and created their Amen, which is a nod to a deity, which we are not going to discuss, but it's not a good thing to say Amen at there after every prayer. Just going to say you're paying homage to a deity or a thing, all right? Chanting Om boosts the production of nitric oxide, NO, in the body. In fact, most spiritual practices boost nitric oxide flow and release excess carbon dioxide. Having taken time to appreciate the value of rousing the Kundalini fire, which is the nitric oxide, and its ability to stimulate pineal metabolism, we can now learn about the actual biochemicals of superconsciousness awakening. DMT and the biochemicals of superconsciousness awakening. Like the sun, the pineal wakes us up with the serotonin secretion and puts us to sleep with the melatonin secretion. Melatonin and serotonin are both precursors to DMT, which is known as the spirit molecule. Serotonin is known as the body's feel-good hormone. It assists with many bodily functions, including appetite control, mood, endocrine regulation, and learning and memory. Melatonin assists with the regulation of the sleep and wake cycles and is a potent antioxidant and interacts positively with the immune system. That's why it's very good to do exercise, because it increases our endorphins, our happiness, and it helps to regulate our serotonin. Melatonin suppresses the adrenal stress hormone, cortisol, and therefore has a positive effect on mood, consequently slowing the aging process. Excessive production of the stress hormone, which is cortisol, and epiphedrine, can cause brain damage and problems in all the parts of the body. It causes a dis-ease in the body. Since the secretions of these hormones are caused by emotion, it is scientifically paramount for mental and physical health to be peaceful and loving and forgiving. It behooves you to practice these things. Serotonin and melatonin are the nectar, or marita, of life. Sero means seed, and mel is the Greek word for honey. A glimpse at their chemical structures reveals the letters that spell honey. Melatonin and serotonin increases DNA synthesis and introduce mitosis, which is cell renewal. Serotonin and melatonin are derived from the tryptophan. Looking at the tryptophan DMT pathway really helps us understand the concept of melatonin upgrades. DMT is a self-produced hallucinogen, which is the source of visionary light and transpersonal and mystical experiences. But DMT does not and cannot work alone in the Great Regeneration. A whole host of other blissful biochemicals are produced too. Let's take a closer look at each of the incredible molecules. DMT, which is ditryptamine, is a self-produced psychedelic chemical, commonly known as DMT, within the human body. It gives rise to all of our dreams, imaginings, and vision. DMT is predominantly found in the human cerebral spinal fluid, the CFS oil, and has the ability to harmonize the body's bioelectricity, thus optimizing cell health and activity. As seen in the tryptophan DMT pathway illustration, DMT is naturally occurring a tryptamine derived from the amino acid tryptophan, as are serotonin and melatonin. The DMT between melatonin and the difference between melatonin and DMT is minute. In fact, the only difference is their molecular structures is one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen, which is equal to just one molecule and carbon dioxide. Simply stated, melatonin, carbon dioxide equals DMT. Mildly reduced carbon dioxide levels elevate brain and lung pH levels, causing pH-dependent enzymes to encourage endogenous or self-produced DMT formation, so as well as high-frequency thoughts and emotions, reducing our internal carbon dioxide aids superconscious awakening too. You can breathe in and breathe out and get a high and get dizzy from that. You do know that. I'm sure you guys know that. For example, deep breathing such as used in meditation decreases carbon dioxide, but overeating raises it. Tryptophan. We've seen that tryptophan is the precursor to DMT, but let's explore a little further. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid available only from food. Real food. Pumpkins, walnuts, oats are among the best vegan sources. Tryptophan assists with nitrogen balance and creates niacin, which is essential in creating serotonin, melatonin, and of course, the spirit molecule dimethyltryptamine. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I know Chief has talked about it as well in many videos, for those of you who do follow Big Brother Chief Red Wolf, stop taking the overcount of melatonin. It's trash and it's doing damage to your body. It is a chemical. It is a toxic thing for your body. Your body produces it naturally. You just have to tap in. In tryptophan structure, sources, and side effects, Danielle Hack says, when the body doesn't get enough tryptophan, it can't make serotonin, which leads to increased feelings of depression. Pineal. Pinealine is another factor in pineal metabolism. The hallucinogenic pinealine is a major contributor to the felt experience of enlightenment. The subconscious mind uses it to communicate with the deeper spheres, allowing prophetic visions to be seen on the timeline. Lack of sleep inhibits pinealine production. When the kundalini or nitric oxide hits the pineal gland, it ionizes the spine ratio of serotonin and its electrons interchange, altering its chemical nature. The molecule itself is reconfigured to the highest potential, the pinealine. Pinealine is also extremely powerful antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and anti-aging oxidant. The pin suffix is the word pinealine, refers to the course to the pineal. The pinealine is the methoxylated tryptamine produced in the pineal gland during the metabolism of melatonin. The most amazing thing about the pinealine is the ability to promote cell health and to production in the nervous system. In a proposed mechanism for the visions of dream sleep, Dr. Calloway speculates that the endogenous production of DMT and pinealine play a distinct role in the dream phenomena. Funnily enough, these two fascinating compounds are also the major components of a shamanic treatment known as ayahuasca. Mexamine is scientifically known as the 5-methotrexate or 5-MT. The mexine is also produced by the transmutation of melatonin in the pineal gland. Mexamine helps to decrease appetite and helps to repair nerve damage. Binozine is also commonly known as benzos or benzodiazepine, is a sedative that allows the mind and body to relax. That's what we produce naturally. It enhances the effect of the neurotransmitter gamma aminobutyric acid or GABA, resulting in the secretion of other useful biochemicals that aid the body in rest, regeneration, and rejuvenation. I actually take a natural supplement of GABA, which I know once I finish that, I'm going to stop taking it, but it does help you decrease your dreams. I mean, it's working for me. And, like I said, I highly recommend us to do more natural means than taking supplements and things like that. I'm just sharing that information with you. It's called GABA. Tryptophan is an antidepressant. It affects chemicals in the brain that make an imbalance in people with depression. It is also a powerful antioxidant and a neurotransmitter and is chemically related to tryptamine. And it says Luciferian. Here we go. Known as the living light, the bioluminescence molecule, luciferin increases the energy in the brain and nervous system and improves internal mind imagery. This makes dreams and visions very lucid, luminous, and very vivid. Our body has that naturally, luciferin. Luciferin is a generic term for light-emitting compound with a bioluminescence reaction. For example, simple potassium salt is also known as D-luciferin. The energy needed for the basic reaction that produces light is taken from the cellular ATP. Oxygen binds to a luciferin molecule and forms a new molecule. Light is the byproduct of the reactions. Now, it says, Japanese science, Kikichi and Kobashi are the minds behind the proof of bioluminescence in humans. The process of bioluminescence requires the presence of two chemicals, luciferin and luciferase, which luciferin reacts with the oxygen in the presence of luciferase. The bioluminescence glow-in-the-dark light is produced. The oxyluciferin is the luminous light emitted by the all bioluminescent creatures like fireflies, jellyfish, etc. In other words, luciferin salts are light-emitting compounds that generate what is known as the bioluminescence or the living light. We have that within our bodies. That's why we call ourselves light bodies, because we are light beings. At the molecular level, the bioluminescence is a product when chemicals or substrates intermingle at the right time and place. The luciferin, the luciferase, and the third player is oxygen. To summarize, this section about DMT and the biochemicals of enlightenment, DMT and luciferin, etc., also with the increased nitric oxide flow, allows us to really feel the manifest experience of enlightenment. Luciferin is no doubt the cause of the flashes of light that our brain sees. And as we pass from this body into the next life, and as we come into this body, we get glimpses or flashes of light. Okay, that's what that happens. That's what this molecule does. Okay, and it says, so often described by those who have had mystical experiences. All of these enlightening biochemicals happen in a synchronicity as part of the inner alchemical process known as preserving and raising the science secretion. This is our natural born birthright. Every single human being has this capability within our bodies. And these beings and these things that masquerade as humans know this. The number one currency in this earth dome is energy. And we possess a lot of it, people. Your God-given potential to enhance melatonin within your body through your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your behaviors. This phenomena is a true gift and shows how wonderfully made Psalms 139:14 we really are. Before we conclude this section on superconsciousness and the resurrection, we need to take another look at the CSF Christ oil, because the forming and the seeping over of the CFS affects the optic thymus, the third ventricle, and the massa intermedia in a profound way. Let's explore. The biochemicals of superconsciousness awakening enhance the CSF, causing it to become an amrita, the nectar of the gods, magnetized and it's charged. Thanks to the spirit fire catalyst, the nitric oxide, the CSF is multiplied and it flooded with DMT and the pineoline and the other biochemicals of superconsciousness, as I read, as it seeps over the ventricles and bathes the entire body. In the 2nd century, Galen defined the optic thymus as two oval masses closely associated with the CFS ventricles on the other side of the brain. The two oval masses were named the optic thalamus because they were found to be involved with the processing and projections of visual reality. The optic thalamus is known as the ophthalmos or optimine, the eyes of the mind. Thalamus opticus, the Latin for form of cusp optici, the optic eminence, the holy eye, the eye of providence, the eye which sleepeth not, the eye which is the substance of all things. Hence the all-seeing eye. The front of the optic thalamus connects to the optic chiasma, and the back connects to the epithalamus, so that the upgraded secretions from pituitary and pineal directly affect it directly. The massa intermedia is the center of the optic thalamus. It connects the two lobes of the optic thalamus and in a way rules our very existence. Its surfaces form part of the walls in the third CSF ventricle, esoterically known as the crystal cave or the palace. Reality projects from the massa intermedia. At the massa intermedia, the center of the brain's torus field, this center point is a plane of inertia built by the brain's resonance. Our senses simply absorb and filter the frequencies that we project from the internal to the external back into the consciousness and perceives them as reality. The frequencies flow to the optic thalamus where they are directed to the microscopic sun, the microcosmic sun, which is the pineal, and the microcosmic moon, which is the pituitary, allowing us to see our reality as above, so below. We are microcosms within the macrocosm. The frequencies vibrate the cerebellum fluid inside the third ventricle, giving rise to the shapes and forms of the so-called physical life. The entire experience of life is generated in this way. So your creative power initializes the massa intermedia and the third CFS ventricle, and you can indeed write your own life stories. And in closing, when you truly grasp this, dormant neurons light up, creating new and powerful pathways of thought and possibility. Your brain fires off in different pathways that are awakening. This is a factor of the superconsciousness awakening. To recap, the biochemicals of superconsciousness awakening travel from the pineal to the optic thalamus via the peduncles, which are the two strands of nerve fibers. The optic thalamus, along with the third ventricle, receive the upgraded biochemicals, which has forming effect in the CFS, causing it to rise and multiply. Hence the light flashes and the tingling or burning sensation in your spine. When the supply of the cerebral spinal fluid exceeds the volume of the central canal, the ventricles of the brain, it seeps over and bathes the nerves, resulting in the experience of an intense physical and spiritual bliss. Like yeast, the seed that comes from the pineal expands and causes the oil in the spinal cord to multiply. The ultimate clarity of mind occurs. The massa media is freed from the discordant cycles and limitless potential is realized, and the great regeneration is underway. And that concludes our reading tonight. I know it's gone over an hour. We're at an hour and about 22 minutes. And I just wanted to thank you all for hanging in here with me. I've read from several texts. To recap, I read from The Sacred Secretion. I've read from The Science of Sacred Secretion, Becoming Superhuman, the Neville Goddard Collection, the Book of Wisdom, and also a smidge from Psalms 121. Again, to summarize, I wanted to share this information with you, pull bits and pieces together to explain certain narratives within the text that has been hidden, a hidden occult knowledge. I will say in closing, I am not here to debate with anyone about whether Christ lived, whether Jesus Christ was an actual person, whether he was an actual being. Yeshua, Joshua, very well could have existed and more than likely did exist. But when you look at the scriptures and you break it down for the hidden meanings inside, you see it's much deeper meaning than what we've been taught. We're only scratching the surface when you go into these worship centers because these people are taught on a surface level. The true hidden meanings behind the text is that for the initiated. The uninitiated will read it like a series of great stories and factual things that happened. And then the initiated will see what the encoded messages truly are, what they truly mean. I thank you all for joining me tonight. And as I always say after every video, be the change you want to see all around this planet, because it is up to you and I to make a positive change. I will be back again in the next day or two to do a live stream sharing information on my laptop about Leviathan, also about Typhon, and we're going to read Ovid Metamorphosis, the Book of Enoch, and we're going to talk about some of the things that happened prior to us coming into these avatar bodies, prior to the fall of Tartary, or right around the time that Tartary fell. Okay, so we have a lot to still go over and cover and learn. And I'm glad that I was able to read this. I hope this was beneficial. I hoped it helped some of you to recall the information, and some of you that have never heard it to investigate further into the things that I have read this evening and to come to your own conclusion and use your own discernment. Thank you all for joining me, and you guys have a great night.